What are the instructions to us as bosses? If the instructions to workers is workers obey your bosses, then the instruction to bosses is bosses take care of your workers. How do you take care as bosses? First of all, you provide your workers with what is right and fair. Colossians 4 verse 1 reads, Masters, provide your slaves with what is right and fair, because you know that you also have a master in heaven. Right and fair, such sentiments were not altogether unheard of in that day. The great philosopher Aristotle, for example, saw no need to speak of justice in the ancient master-slave relationship. In keeping with the Old Testament teaching, however, slave masters in the covenant community were required to do what is right by their slaves and act in according with God's standards for how people should be treated. Slaves had to be treated like human beings and with fairness of that of a free person would expect in Roman society. The slave owed obedience to his master, but the master also owed a debt to the slave, a debt of kindness, justice, and fairness. John Calvin writes, Masters have not their servants bound to them in such a manner as not to owe something to them in their return. Again, Paul's statement in Colossians 1 radically restricts the power of the slave master over the slave. The master cannot treat a slave in any manner he likes. This is grounded in the fact that the slave master himself is not as free as he might think, but has a master in heaven. Christ sees how his people treat those under their charge and hold them to the highest standards. By way of application, those who are managers or those who otherwise supervise people should keep in mind the principle behind the proper treatment of slaves by masters. Employees are not to be treated as mere cogs in a machine, and Christians, supervisors, must treat them as people with real needs, hopes, and desires, and not simply as those whose only value is how much they add or take away from the bottom line. The false teachers at Colossus taught that spirituality consists of higher knowledge and mystical experience. But Paul says true spirituality is demonstrated in the practical, day to day, down to earth relationship in your home and workplace. Bosses and workers look at the Lord as the ultimate reward giver and judge, as the motivation for your relationship with each other. Christ is central. He's the center of the universe. He's central to the church. He's central to everything. And part of living the Christ centered life is putting Christ at the center of your relationships as well. Be blessed.